Good morning, everyone. I think we'll go ahead and get started with this morning's session. This first session this morning is the NEPA resources session, and our presenters are Andrea Taylor and Brad Asbill with Cherokee Nation. And Andrea will start us off this morning. So Andrea, you have the floor.
Thanks, Karen. Hi, everybody. This session's, we use these websites typically when we do NEPA reports, primarily for HUD projects, but we also use it for IHS and federal highways and BIA, other federal agencies that we write reports for. But these websites are very helpful for those of you that do NEPA reports. You know what is required. These websites are very helpful to get that information quickly and generating a nice report to put in your NEPA document. So first of all, as you can see, I've got NEPA Assist loaded here. And when you put in that the link that Karen had on the agenda, that's the link that'll get you directly to this screen here. And as you can see, I have, it'll open it up and you can see the street view. You can also layer in different backgrounds. So if you prefer the topo map, you can layer in a topo map. And as you can see, you can do any type of things: hybrid, streets, navigation for in the dark. There's all kinds of things that you can use as a background. So if you have a site and you know it's a certain quarter section of a section in your for your legal description, you can do that, or you can load in your lat and long, which is what I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to give you an example of one that we've done recently. And whenever you do your on this website, you put in the lat first and the longitude second. You'll see on FEMA website they like you to do longitude and latitude. Oh, I was going to show you some of the other websites. This is the FEMA website for making a FEMA map for your project to determine whether it's legally in a 100-year or the 500-year floodplain. And then here's the web soil survey for getting soil data for your project. I'm going to talk about NEPA Assist first. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to load in a, oops, I'm sorry. Looking at the wrong note. And you just log it in just like it reads. And then just hit enter. And I'm sorry, our internet is running a little slow today. I apologize for that. And then you'll get a little cross here. And this is where your lat and long has placed it. If you just click right on the center of that, hopefully it'll run faster for you when you're running it. I apologize for this. You would just put in your site name, whatever that would be. And what I'm going to run first is, you can see over here in these select map contents, these several tabs that you have available to you. I'm going to show you how we assess the requirements for HUD projects on whether or not it's located near hazardous waste sites, any RCRA sites, that kind of thing. And what the HUD requirements want you to tell them any site that's within a half a mile of your project that is a RCRA site, a toxic release site, and a TSCA site. And as you can see, it automatically starts populating these things with these color-coded boxes. And if you say you want to do a half-mile radius, which is what's required for these types of sites, you go ahead and hit add to map. And you can see that it's starting to populate extremely slowly. I apologize for this. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to zoom out so you can see the full buffer half-mile radius line that it gives you. While that loads, you can see that it's populating, and you can see that you're getting a nice flat half-mile circle around your site. And as you can see, I have some sites populating within that half-mile radius. Some that are just outside, but some that are within. And what I will get here, and I'm going to go ahead with this loaded right now. I'm going to do a NEPA assist report. I'm going to go back while that loads. But you can see here that your site has several hazardous RCRA sites, at least one toxic release site, and it looks like it has some TSCA sites just outside of your boundary. But what you can do, that RCRA or that NEPA assist report is loading. There we go. And this is what you can put in your report. And you'll see here that you have several RCRA sites within your 5-mile boundary or half-mile boundary, excuse me. And it'll tell you some other data that all these things are hitting on these. And it tells you that you have yeses on all these here. I always put a copy of this in my projects folder showing that all of these sites are within my boundaries. Then I go back and I click right here on this site. And typically this will load a lot quicker than this. But you have Acme Body Shop here in Marlesville. And you can click right here. And this is where you want to click on the Echo report, and that'll tell you anything that they've had to report. If they've had any releases or if they're in compliance. No violation identified within the last 12 quarters, which is great. That's what you want to see. And I scroll down here and it has all of these quarters, which will do the 12 most recent quarters and tell you whether there was a violation identified or not. And then you can get all kinds of information associated with this. And it'll even give you the EJ information associated with this project site too, and your demographics. And I go ahead and print this as well for each of these sites, showing that, first of all, you have your report showing that you have these sites in front or within your half-mile radius, but then you'll have this behind it showing that you looked at the site and there's no issue to the people that are living nearby because it's got no violations. And I typically print this as well, and it'll generate a nice report that you can put in behind that first file. And I won't do that today. It will take too long, obviously, but then you can just click on all of these and you get that same Echo report for each site. And then again, it'll tell you whether you have any issues or not. But you can just see, for the most part, these sites you're going to find out are not going to have violations. It's pretty rare to find them if they do. But if they do, you can query in and find out what that violation involved. Usually when these will populate with a problem, you'll be able to click on the source ID and it'll give you some information that they had compliance with Clean Air Act but has sent remedied that and that they're on board again. And then you can just note that in your report. And so after you do all of those, you can come back. And what I do is uncheck these. And I go back to my site, cross arrow here, hopefully get it to populate. Okay. Sorry about this, guys. But my site will come right back up with the name and everything. And I'm going to change my buffer to 1 mile. And this 1 mile is for HUD projects is required for Superfund and MPL sites. So if you have any project within a 1 mile of your site, you have to see if there's a Superfund site within that 1 mile radius. And once that populates, I'm going to check on the Superfund one. And then we'll have a little orange block there that comes up. And you can see that there is one MPL site within a half mile or within a mile of this site. It's National Zinc. And so you can click on that and get the echo report for that. And you can see here that there's no data returned. And so when you get to that, if that happens, what I did is I spoke to Chelsea and Jason at our offices, and they are the Superfund people. And I got some information from them, and they got me in contact with how to address the issues here. And so that's what you do here. You just look at those things, and then you can move forward with how you need to address it. But that's what I was wanting to show you on this for the hazardous requirements for a HUD project. But you can see here that there is a lot of different options that you can do here. You can see EPA monitoring sites, boundaries, like if you need that for your EA that you're talking about, they'll want to know like your population, how close you are to urbanized areas, that kind of thing. And and it'll tell you your non-attainment zones for the Clean Air Act. It has a lot of great impaired streams, water bodies, sole source aquifers. That's also a requirement for NEPA. You can find sites listed in the National Register for Historic Places, schools, because that's important for your EAs. How close is, if you're going to put in 10 homes, how close is it to elementary schools and high schools? Let's see what we got here. It's like we've got plenty of schools within a mile of our site. So that's good. You can show that on your environmental assessment. We're going to show you the web soil survey later, but you can also get access to that from here. Well, typically, sorry, it's not working today. But you can also get the wetland information and your FEMA cover. Now I'm going to move on unless there is any questions on this website.
Okay, Andrea, if you want to check the chat box, just
Okay.
to make sure there's not any questions. And if you're calling in, you'll probably need to send me or Chelsea an email, and we will forward it to Brad and Andrea. I don't see any chats in the box on our end just yet. So
Okay.
folks, you guys use the chat box if you have any questions, or you can email me. So sorry to interrupt, but go ahead.
Well, thank you, Karen. I'm going to move forward, and we can always go back if people have questions on any of these things down the road. I'm going to close all of this stuff from the NEPA assist so I can get back to the. Okay, and what we're going to move to next. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt again. I was going to mention, we might try turning your camera off and seeing if the internet will move a little faster. I don't know if that'll help, but we were thinking that might, speed it up just a little bit. So it's just an option.
I will stop video now. Okay, guys, I hope that does help. So what I'm going to show you now is the FEMA web soil. The FEMA flood map service center. If you click on the link that Karen had entered into the agenda, you will come to this website here. And you can enter in an address or a longitude and latitude. This is what I was talking about before. Typically you write latitude and longitude, but for whatever reason, FEMA lays it in here this way. And they want you to do longitude first. And so I've got a site here that we'll look at that I have the coordinates for. And then you just put them in right like that. Turning off the video helped quite a bit. Okay, so this is a site we were looking at, and they were wanting to build a new house. There was a rundown house that needs to be demoed about right here. And they were wanting to rebuild like right in here. Excuse me. But as you can see, when we went out to the site to do our site visit, we saw that this was in the floodplain. So what I told the people with the mortgage assistance program, and that's the program they were going to build with, that they needed to look at a different site if they could, if they had any other land. And so and then to restake, then we needed to told them that they needed to move further south towards the rural road that they lived on. So we did that, and then we came back out, and it wasn't quite far south enough. And so I think we ended up going maybe 2 or 3 times. And then finally we got them to stake an area about right here. And that showed that it was outside of the floodplain and not inside. So, those of you that do NEPA know, or especially for HUD, know that if you, of course, which makes sense, HUD does not want you to build a house in the floodplain. So you don't want to put your participants in harm's way. So they make it very, very difficult to get that going. So if they wanted to go ahead and build here, we would have to go through what HUD has as the 8-step process. And that's a FEMA process, but HUD adopts it for their process. But there's multiple things you have to do to clear it, showing you have to do public comment and show how other sites are not available and what have you. So it was good that we were able to use this tool to show that quickly and get back out there and get an alternate location found. So I'm going to move my little pointer down here, which is closer to where we were. And then whenever you're ready to go, you'll have your little thing, your little tool here, marker, based on your coordinates that you give it. And you can also enter an address, and it'll populate that for you. I just caution when using an address. Sometimes if you don't know for sure if that's exactly where the site is, you might have incorrect information. Sometimes, I know you all know that Google does a good job on addresses, but sometimes it's not completely accurate. It might give you the street, but not exactly where the house is. So I recommend using coordinates from when you go out to do your site visit. And hopefully this will load. And then you'll notice when you run FEMA maps here, a lot of time it has a little bit of issue with it running slowly. Okay, and this is what you generate. It'll generate this little map with your little pin here. It's not exactly where it is, but when we go into print it, we can adjust that. So what we typically do is just save this down to the computer, and then we go back in with an Adobe Professional where you can edit PDFs. We might put a little marker here showing that the house is going to be located here with the name, and then that's what we put in the file. And you can see that we generated it today at this time. Well, that's Eastern time, but I cannot get that to, we've talked to the FEMA people and they cannot get that to work. I'm not sure why not, but it will not work for Central time. It's always your Eastern time, but that's fine. But what the point of it is showing that you looked at it today, and this is the valid map at this point for that site. And this is a legal FEMA map for insurance purposes and for your NEPA report. And you can see that it gives you a nice legend of what you're looking at and what all of these mean. And it shows you here that you have in your base elevation approximations and things like that. That also, and you can also download the entire format panel with this click. This will give you this panel here. And that you can download the entire panel and then you can show all products for the whole county as well. So if you don't know exactly where your site is, or if you want to look at certain areas in Cherokee County, you can look at all the panels for Cherokee County on this website as well. You can search by panel, search by county. course, we're gonna get Oklahoma, Cherokee County. If you want rural areas or just for whatever reason, or if you want to look at Fort Gibson or Oaks, Tahlequah, that kind of thing, you can click on all that and it'll populate for you. Let's do the town of Holbert and see what we get. But these will be all of the effective panels for Holbert's jurisdictional area. And then you can download them all or just look at them piecemeal. And you can see the effective dates, your index. That's the main index, is like basically where you can look at your site over that whole area and determine which of these panels your sites would located in. You can do that as well. But there's also a FEMA desktop mapper that you can use, because sometimes this website is temperamental and doesn't want to work. That desktop mapper will allow you to download like these panels, and you can use a desktop mapper and just log in. Like if you needed this panel here, you could load that in and make yourself an official format from that desktop mapper. And that's available from the website that you can download, and you can use those at any time. And then you can generate a map even if for whatever reason, your internet is down or the website is down. And that's very helpful if you need to get projects out the door. Does anyone have any questions about this site?
Andrea?
Yes.
There is a question in the chat box. I just sent it to you.
Okay. Yes, it says here, Ramona asks, are NEPA Assist and the FEMA flood map tools free? Absolutely free. These are all free websites. You can use them unlimited. There is no access for use. It's a really good question, as is the web soil survey as well. And I am going to let Brad do the web soil survey. I apologize, but I need to pop out of here. And you guys, thank you so much for attending. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrea.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Brad Asbell, and I'm going to be doing the web soil survey. Apologize for not having video, but our internet and particularly my computer's running slow. So anyway, this is the website for the web soil survey. And when you come on here, there's a lot of information. You'll notice over here on the right hand side, there's a lot of links that you can go and find information on different topics. And also over here on the left, there's just a ton of information on here. But what we're going to do is you're going to hit this little button here that says Start Web Soil Survey. And this is going to open up a new window. And I'll start a new session because we actually opened it earlier. Okay, so when you open it, it's going to take you to this map of the United States. And the first thing you're going to do over here on the left, there's a quick navigation pane. And this is to get you to your area of interest. So as you can see, you can search by address, state and county, soil survey area, latitude and longitude, section, township, and range, and all these others. And what we usually do is just go to the simplest thing. I mean, everybody, I assume, has a cell phone. There's tons of free apps you can get that'll give you your latitude and longitude. I think if you have an iPhone, that built-in compass app will even tell you your lat and long. And so that's real easy to find. You don't have to have a fancy GPS unit or anything like that. So I'm going to type in the coordinates here of a site that we did, about a year ago or so. And when you're typing your coordinates, be sure on your longitude to put the negative sign. If you don't, it's going to put you somewhere on the other side of the world. Okay. So then you type in your coordinates and you just hit view, and that's going to zoom into that spot. Okay, so this particular spot was it was just a site where they're going to do some housing development. And the next thing you want to do when you zoom in, when you know where your site is you want to come up here and, well, first of all, there's all these tools you can zoom in. You know, say if you wanted to, if I wanted to zoom in to actually where my site is, make it a little bit bigger, you can do that. You can zoom in, you can pan around that. There's a measure distance. But what you want to do is select your area of interest. That's what this AOI is. And you can do that by selecting this rectangle. So it's just going to, you know, wherever you, and that's what I'm going to use because my area here is actually a rectangle. Or if you've got a weird shaped polygon, you can choose this and draw it. But I'm just going to choose this. And in my area is actually right here. Okay. So this is going to give you this screen, and it's going to have this outlined area that's kind of crosshatched, and that's telling you that it got it, and that's your area of interest. So from here, there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, this website will tell you anything you want to know about soil data. If they don't have it, you probably don't need it. So one of the most basic things you can do is come over here to the soil map. And this is going to break it up, and it'll tell you it has these acronyms here for these symbols for the different soil types, and then you can see they're kind of divided here on the project side. And then over here, it'll tell you the map unit symbol, so NAB, which is this area right here. And then it tells you what it actually is. Newtonia silt loam, 1-3% slopes. It tells you how many acres is in your area of interest and the percent in your area of interest. So you can also click on this, and it's going to bring up this little window here. So it's going to tell you, you know, just all the properties of that soil group. It's going to tell you the mean annual precipitation, air temperature, frost-free period, if it's prime farmland or not, which I'll get to that here in a minute. We're going to look at a map where it'll tell you, you can look at it and just tell by the map if it's prime farmland or not. Then it's going to have the description of it, what the landform is, landform position, and it's going to give you a profile of that soil type, properties and qualities, just a lot of information here. That, you know, a lot of it you won't use, a lot of it we don't use, but some of it do. You can also print that. If you click this, it's going to bring up the window and you can print it. If you, so it's going to print it. You can print it directly from here. You can open it in Acrobat and print like that. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to go back to this. Okay, so one of the main things we use this for is to determine if areas are prime farmland or not, because that's one of the, under the HUD NEPA, that's one of the things you have to look at in their statutory checklist. So if you come over here to the Soil Data Explorer, okay, there's going to be a lot of information over here. But I'll go through some of these, but the first thing I'm going to do here is go to land classifications. And like, there's a question mark here. If you hit that, it's going to tell you about what, land classification is. So, but then if you hit this, well, if you hit this down arrow, it's going to open up all these sub-levels here of different land classifications. And the ones that we look at a lot, like I said, for NEPA, for HUD, it's farmland classification. So if you hit that and hit detailed description, it's going to give you a little bit more information, and then hit view rating. Okay, so come on here. And like I said, you can automatically tell here which areas are prime farmland. Prime farmland is always going to be shaded in green. Non-prime farmland areas are going to be shaded in red. So it was helpful for us when I did this project for filling out the NEPA checklist. And typically when we do this, there's a form we fill out. We send that along with a letter and site map to the NRCS, National Resource Conservation Service, and we fill out part of the form, and they fill out part of it. We determine, and it's based on a scoring system, and based on that, you can determine whether it's going to have any impacts. Generally, it doesn't. None of our sites are. Most of the sites we do aren't being farmed anyway, so it's usually not a big deal. So after you get this, you can come up here again and go to this printable version. Well, first let me scroll down. You can scroll down here, and then it's going to give you this table summary by map unit. It's going to have the map unit symbol here, name, and whether it's prime farmland or not. And again, the acres that are in your area of interest and the percent. Then it tells you what farmland classification is, rating options. That's just kind of how they determine that factor. But what I wanted to show you is you can come up here and hit the printable version. You can add a subtitle. Let's call this test. You have these map options here. I always just leave this default fit to page and landscape. And you hit view. And okay, it's going to generate this report for you. So farmland classification, Cherokee County. Under that is whatever you typed in for your subtitle there, test, and we usually type in whatever the name of our project is there. So it's going to give you your map, and it's going to show your prime farmland areas. And then you've got the map legend here. And you can see there's all sorts of different types of prime farmland. When I told you all ago that it's either, red or green, that's all we've ever come across. I've never come across any of these others. Depending on where you live, I mean, here in Oklahoma, northeast Oklahoma anyway, that's all I've seen. But, different parts of the state or different parts of the country, I'm sure you might run into some of these. If you scroll on down, just get you more continued legend here. And that tells you a little bit about the map here. Map at 124,000. Source of map, Natural Resource Conservation Service, and all this other information. So again, scroll down here, it's going to give you the map unit symbol, the name of the soil, and whether it's prime farmland and how many acres. And then again, you can go ahead and print this or just open it up in Acrobat. And that's what we usually do. We usually save it to our file and add it to our NEPA document. Okay, so another thing I wanted to show you here is you go up here to soil properties and qualities, and it's kind of confusing because when you hit the soil data explorer, it pops up these other tabs. So it's kind of hard to keep track of them all, but anyway, just remember the prime farmland is under this tab, the suitabilities and limitations for use. But if you come over here to the soil properties and qualities, nope, that's not what I want. Sorry, it is under this one. See, it's confusing. I've been doing this a long time, and I still lose track of where everything is. There's just so much information on here. Building site development. When we're going to be building, homes or community buildings, most of them, and they have different types of buildings here, the properties, and the ones we always look at are dwellings without basements. So if you hit that down arrow, hit detailed description, and hit view rating. If you hit view description, it's just going to pop up and give you a little information about whatever factor you're looking at there. In our case, it's dwelling without basements. But if you hit view rating, again, it's going to change. It's going to change the shading of these different soil types. And in our case here, the yellow, if you scroll on down, I'll leave the screen like that, you can kind of see these three soil types are yellow, which is somewhat limited for dwellings without basements, which means they're limited in some way. And over here, it tells you the reason. And I'm not a soil scientist, but you can kind of tell, shrink swell, depth to saturated zone. That's the reason given why it's somewhat limited, but these are, they're not going to stop your project. They can be overcome with, construction methods and that sort of thing. The one in the red is very limited. And the reason being primarily for this one is flooding, depth to saturated zone, shrink swell. And you can see here, you can kind of see on this aerial photo, there's actually a little, excuse me, small stream here. Excuse me. And there's a little pond. And this is, if you're out there looking at it, this is actually kind of like a little wetland area. So in this particular case, that's the reason why it's very limited. So when I did this NEPA document and gave it to our housing people, I told them, you probably want to put all your houses in this area that's shaded yellow and avoid this area. And according to their plans, I think they were planning on doing that anyway, and just kind of leaving this pond here or expanding it and making it like a collection pond sort of thing. So it worked out good. Again, you can come up here to this printable version and hit that and give it a subtitle again, hit view. And it's going to bring up your report on dwellings without basements. And it'll always, up at the top of your report, it'll always tell you what your report is on, whether it's prime farmlands or dwelling without basements or whatever the case may be. Again, it's got the map legend. the map unit symbol, the name, and the rating. Okay, so that's the two main things that we use this for. There's all sorts of other information you can use this. Trying to think of a couple more we use them for. So let's see, that's not it. Okay, this, if you wanted to know, the chemical properties of the soil erosion factors, I'm not sure what all these are, but if you want to know the wind erodibility group or the index, you could do that. If you rating, and there's the same thing. So you can kind of see once you learn where all of these tabs are and all these factors, wherever you're trying to get to, once you learn how to get there, the process is pretty much the same. You open up whatever factor you're interested in and hit view rating, and then it's going to repopulate this map, shade it to whatever color that corresponds to whatever you're looking at. Then you can scroll down here and it's going to tell you again, map unit, the name, and the rating. And again, you can come up here to the printable version and generate a report. Another thing that might be useful I think now most of the state of Oklahoma has ferment flood maps like Andrea was showing you all ago. But I know there were some areas around here, like part of McIntosh County and some others that didn't have them. So if you wanted to know the flooding frequency, you could do that. And it's not a ferment, it's not official, but it might at least let you know, which areas are prone to flooding. And this one, you can see these areas shaded in red are none. And this OS, this one over here on the far right, is occasional. And again, that's due to the stream and wetland area here. So I think that's about it, guys. That's about all I got. I mean, you can spend hours going through here and finding different soil properties and suitabilities and ecological site. This is handy because I had to do an environmental assessment on a project here just recently, and the format was different from HUD. It wasn't HUD, and in the process of doing that, we had to tell, what ecoregion it was in and that sort of thing. So this was real handy, and determining that. And the good thing about this is it's got it's got your soil over here, component name, but then it tells you which ecological site it is. It's actually got a link here. Hopefully it'll open. And it takes you to this site, which is really helpful. It'll come on here and tell you, loamy upland prairie. It just tells you about it. It gives you all this information. It shows you where it's out on the map. And just got a lot of good information. So I use that, like I said, for an environmental assessment I did just recently. So all sorts of information, good information on here that you can use for your NEPA or whatever. This is applicable to a lot of different environmental things that you may be working on. So I think that's it. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Brad. I don't see any in the chat box on my end just yet. You might want to check your chat box. So everyone, we have plenty of time. So go ahead. If you have any questions, put them in the chat box, or you can email them to me. And we'll give you just a couple of minutes, just in case you're typing in the chat box. While we're waiting, I wanted to remind everyone of our next session. It is the climate change session, and it starts at 10:30 this morning. So don't forget to join us for that. So Brad, did you have any questions in your chat box?
Yeah, I've got one from Gabriel Lambert. Says, if I looked up erosion of concrete on my land, is GLO still okay? Erosion of concrete. I'm not sure, but it should tell you when you do that. Like I said, the map should be color coded, and then you should be able to scroll down to the bottom of the screen like this, and it should tell you what that color means, whether it's restricted or non-restricted or whatever the case may be. So that's the only question I had.
Okay, well, thank you for that question. I don't see any that have came in on my end just yet. So if anyone has any questions after the fact, please just email them to me and I will forward them to Brad and Andrea. So if no one has any questions, I think that's it for this session. So thank you, Brad.
Thank you
for presenting. We appreciate it. And again, if anybody has any questions, please just send them to me and I'll forward them to Brad and Andrea. So with that, I guess we'll sign off for this session, and you guys be sure and join us again at 10:30. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.